You're going to let me know when it's good? Okay. Hello and welcome to the Saratoga Springs Planning Commission for February 10th, 2022. I'll go ahead and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Could I get the audience to please rise and repeat the pledge after me? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The audience may be seated. Okay, roll call. Commissioners Barton and Commissioner Ryan are both excused this evening as they had other commitments they needed to attend to. If Commissioner Anderson comes, we will allow him to participate in the meeting. For staff, we have David Stroud, Nicolette Fike, Frederick Donaldson, and Ken Young representing the staff. At this time, we have time set aside for any person to express ideas, concerns, comments, questions, or issues that are not listed as public hearing on the agenda. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and no repeat comments. If there's anyone who would like to make comment, the mic is open and it's available to you. I'll go ahead and close public comment at this time. And there's Commissioner Anderson, so he's in attendance this evening. The next item, number 4, is a work session on Title 19 code amendments. And I'll turn the time over to our Planning Director, David Stroud.
Yeah, Planning Commission, typically we try to work on things quarterly, get changes to you, things that have to be cleaned up in the code. And so this is a good chunk of this first quarter one. We got quite a few amendments here to go through. So we're just going to do this as a work session tonight. It's strictly just a discussion, get your thoughts, ideas. This will then come back to you in 2 weeks as a public hearing. And then we'll do a back-to-back turnaround on the council on March 1st. So at the next Planning Commission, we'll have to do a, drawing a blank on doing the minutes we send out. Because the council's already going to have their staff report by the time we come to Planning Commission in 2 weeks. And so we will do that. So I guess what we can do, we can just go through, work our way down the list. We'd only have one of the monitors working here, so you can probably best off looking on your own devices if possible, or you can tune into the monitor above my head. And so first off, we're adding definitions. Well, first let me just open up for questions. Is there anything you want to discuss as we go through this? Probably a better way to do that may save us some time. May not have to discuss everything that's on here.
I have a couple things.
Okay.
And since I'm the chair, I'll start. The first one I have is on the electric scooters for rental. I was wondering, is there anything in the code if they do become a nuisance? And what I mean by that is, I've been to several events in downtown Salt Lake City, and these things are all over, and I've been nearly run over 2 or 3 times. So is there anything in the code, if that becomes an issue? We have.
I mean, say for instance, somebody's, they're all parked on a sidewalk. Typically, if you follow the textbook, probably what we do is we'd contact the whoever the company is, say, you got to come get these off the sidewalk. I don't know how much the city would actually, would we go out there and move them 5 feet off the side? I don't know if we want to take that. Oh, you broke it when you moved it type thing. I don't know on that. But typical response would be, hey, you got some violations here of your code. We have a code enforcement officer who's always out in the city every day. And so if these do ever come to the city, he certainly will be the eyes on the city. To see what the status of these scooters are. And we could treat it as, hey, you're blocking a public right of way, or if we do see a violation, we would just do the normal process of, contacting the owner and say, this is your zoning violation, come in and rectify it.
I'm meaning more like what happened to me is I was walking down the street and it was by Temple Square where the Symphony is, and there's a big sidewalk, and they were cutting the corner there, and they nearly knocked me over. They were going incredibly fast.
So actively being used.
Right, yeah. I can walk around them.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to control somebody that's actively using one. So I don't know how we would really address that issue.
Mr. Donaldson, do you?
I think the city code actually prohibits riding the scooters on the sidewalk, and anything motorized like that needs to be ridden on the street.
Okay.
So if there was a collision, someone got injured, and it was on the sidewalk, I think the police would cite that person potentially for doing that.
All right. My other thing is on the section 1916.05, the design standards where it's removing two-family from the descriptions. Is that part of that? There was a change in state code.
There's state code of the last legislative session, which dealt with that. So yeah, we're just cleaning that up to comply with state code.
Okay. On the last section, color variation, the two-family wasn't crossed out. Is that
Oh,
supposed
did
to
we miss one there? Okay.
be? Yeah. And then this is from today's.
Okay. Which section was that in?
So go down, it's 1916.06, architectural design standards residential, and it's number 3, color variation. See right there, A, two-family?
Oh, got it. Yep, we did miss that one. Okay. Good
That's
catch.
all I have. Anybody else have comments they want to make?
Yeah.
Okay, Ken?
So we should go first before, so, okay.
We want to take it by section?
I would say, I'd say just bring up if you have a question on something instead of,
Oh,
maybe that's just the best way, like, just like Troy did. If you had a few questions, bring them up, then move on.
okay. Then on 19.02, food truck event permit, says political subdivision. I was wondering, do we need to define political subdivision, or should we, or is that defined somewhere else? Or is that needed to be defined?
Is that
it
state code
pretty
language,
clear?
Fred? Is that an official state term?
Political subdivision is a defined term in the state code, but I don't know why we're using that term particularly. I think that could be changed to the city.
Okay, because I was wondering if.
Dave, do you want to make that
A
note?
permit that a political subdivision issues to the organizer. And I was wondering, does that include like HOAs? Are they a political subdivision?
No.
No, they're not, okay. All right.
No.
So if it's defined, then I don't have a problem with it. I just didn't know if everyone knows what that is, so.
Yeah,
Is city a broader stroke than political subdivision?
well, city is one political subdivision, but a county is another political subdivision, and there's other political subdivisions as well.
Can the county issue permits in our city?
I don't think so. That's why I'm saying maybe the note should be that we want that to be the city.
Okay.
And
That's
I
where
would
first
note.
found it, but there, it appears in several different locations as well.
Okay, and I would note too that because the legislature has been working on a bill related to food trucks, that part of the code, I mean, what did we decide on that, Dave? Isn't this on
I think
hold?
I think it's probably best, is my suggestion anyway, that maybe we just hold off on the food truck section. We may get something approved, but then they may enact something that, okay, we have to go back and amend it again. Let's maybe just make things easier. I don't think it's pressing to get it, this approved next week, but it's certainly something we have to get done here in the near future. But I think it's probably best to wait on whatever comes to the current legislative session.
Well, and I think it's good to work through it tonight, though.
Yeah.
That's why we brought it before you,
Just,
because,
maybe just do a search, because I know it appeared several other places as well, not just the food truck, it was just the first one that I saw.
Yeah.
But yeah, that makes sense that we don't do anything with the food truck stuff if they're.
Like Fred said, so we can discuss it, get your thoughts and ideas, and if there are any suggestions, we can see if we can then incorporate those once we get word on what the legislature is going to do.
Okay. And then below that is just food truck. And, it says this does not include ice cream vendors. And I was wondering why ice cream vendors are not included as part of the food truck when shaved ice is.
Food truck does not include snow cone, shave ice vendors, which are
Yeah,
mobile.
food cart is also excluded. But but then later on, it explicitly says that shaved ice is not excluded, or is not excluded, whereas ice cream vendors are.
Well, the shaved ice are typically, they'll go there for the summer months. So in a sense, it's temporary, yes, but it's not a food truck. We're only going to be parked in one spot for a few hours. The shaved ice places stay historically 3 months probably.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I think that the shaved ice is not prepackaged. I'm to assume that the ice cream trucks sell prepackaged ice cream sandwiches and stuff. They don't, is an ice cream vendor a prepackaged only vendor?
It doesn't make that distinction.
I don't know.
Someone could scoop it out of a, bowl, out of a bucket or something.
Yeah.
If they make ice cream, for example.
Yeah.
So
Maybe there's
if
some
they sell it-
distinction that's needed there.
No.
So the city council recently passed changes related to mobile food vending, including both food trucks and ice cream trucks or ice cream vendors. And so that's another reason why we put a hold on this, is so that we can make sure that this part of the code that we were putting here in Title 19 is consistent with the code that we amended in Title 5. You didn't have an opportunity to review those changes because they were not land use ordinances. And so where this is in Title 19, that's why you're looking at these, is because they're part of the land use code. And so we need to go back and make sure that the terms, and I do know that distinction between shaved ice and ice cream, I think it's addressed in Title 5.
Okay, all right,
So-
thank you. Okay, and then public building or facilities, county owed. Oh, yeah, so just below that, under public buildings or facilities, county owned, in paragraph B, the first part says, public uses such as police, jail, fire service, ambulance, blah, 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 blah. And then the last part says, but does not include waste management, water treatment, scalping operations, and jail or detention facilities. So we've got jail included and then
Well,
excluded.
and yeah, I'd probably see what it was meant to say, we'll change it, like temporary holding facilities are typically less than 24 hours, Fred, so they can be taken down. Because someone could do something here in the city, they need to book them, hold them, then they'll take them down to typically down into Provo, down to the facility down there. So just be a temporary, so we'll make the change there to call that out as a temporary. But yeah, I see where jail and jail.
Yeah, because the first part of the sentence says they were included, and then the second part says they're excluded.
Yeah, and this is on the heels coming of the county has some property in the city they would like to locate some North County services on. So that's the impetus for putting this county facility requirements and some of the standards in here now.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit more about that, the county building that they,
Yeah, they're looking at doing a satellite office for like recording, things like that. There could be a sheriff's satellite station as well, which would necessitate the need for at least a holding facility. We're good with that. We just don't want anything that deals with water treatment or waste treatment for any type of facility like that in the county. Things that residents have to go down to Provo for now. They feel it's, the population center and the travel, it's best, then they've got the property now, it's best that they can locate some of those facilities up here in Saratoga Springs. And we did, the planning commission did do a rezone recommendation before you came on a few months ago. It's on hold until we get some of these things in the code worked out and a development agreement agreed upon with the county. And they're fine just waiting until we're done with all we need to do here.
okay, thank you.
And I would just add, I think the intention is not to have a jail, meaning more than an overnight or a temporary holding facility, or a detention center, like a long-term jail or detention center on the property. We're not, is that correct, Dave?
Yeah, we'll probably just change it. Temporary holding facility is probably what will replace that first jail word with, or something similar to that.
Okay, so then I guess you just take out jail. I mean, there's two jails in that one paragraph, so you just have to take one out, I guess. And then below that is a chart, and we've changed the minimum dwelling size to 1,000.
That's state code also.
That's a-
State code, yeah.
Okay, I was just gonna ask why we did that.
To make, their attempt to make housing more affordable, most likely, so.
Oh, okay. And then page 6. Oh, so paragraph 7, A and B, I didn't understand what,
Which section?
it's, so just 2 pages after that, 2 pages after the first, what we're talking about?
Mixed use?
Mixed use, yeah, that's it. Mixed use zone standards. I didn't understand the intent of paragraphs A and B. About how they're not supposed to be separated by a public.
Yeah,
or
this
private
came, that A came from the Riverside, Riverview Commercial, Riverview Residential. Residential's not there yet, but the commercial that's just being built across from DI right now. When that project came, that zone mixed use. But the way the code it was at that time that came through, you have a independent commercial development separated by the future Riverside. On the other side of Riverside, against the river is going to be the residential. There's nothing mixed use about that. And so the council expressed their frustration with that, saying, we need something to be able to, you know, the whole purpose is trying to integrate those uses together. That's the big question of how that's done. But definitely not splitting them by a public or a private road.
Yeah. And I guess that idea then for paragraph B is also then carried through with open space and.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are just things I've come up with. How do you kind of work these things together? I mean, so obviously residential has to have open space. You know, commercial development has to have 20% landscaping. You know, the intent of hopefully of B is to incorporate those together and let those kind of flow together, act as, in a sense, one, which leaves it open between residential, commercial to, you know, not, well, let's throw up a fence, isolate, here's strictly residential, here's strictly commercial, zero interaction between the two.
Okay, that makes sense. And then a couple more pages down, let's see, section. So the whole section, additional standards for mobile food vendors, that was all removed, and I was wondering what the idea of, what was the purpose of removing the standards for, those additional standards for mobile food vendors? Paragraphs 4A through E were all removed.
Those should have been incorporated somewhat elsewhere, or, you know, Fred, do you recall that on that one? On
Yeah, it's,
4?
I think it's my understanding that they just moved those and incorporated them in the later section related to food trucks.
Okay,
So,
okay. Yeah, I do remember that was added. Pieces were added. And then,
I would rather have more chairs out there and see people sit out and socialize and be part of the community. That's how you build community.
That's a good point.
okay, and then.
Say it in your microphone.
And to your point, though, about, I think you made, Troy, you made the comment about the parking right, or stairs right in front of the truck.
I didn't make,
Oh, is that, Ken, you made that
Ken.
comment?
Yeah.
Probably not, I mean,
if we-
ideally, I mean, you
make
think
this
though,
one.
yeah, I think though, if you go to a food truck though, you've got a serving window, you probably got people in line as well.
Yeah,
Probably not a good way to, if you were to clarify it by using that, I would suspect.
well, if we allow self-policing with the parade, then maybe it's the same thing with this. It's-
Yeah.
I doubt that food truck vendors would want to deal with 12 chairs all spread out, you know, across the way. And so that will maybe self-police itself, I don't know. But I do understand that there should be maybe some kind of a limit, but we don't limit it right now for parades, so.
No, and Commissioner, you know, Sprotsy Burns has a good comment. Me and my wife and I do that in where we live. We take our chairs down to where the food truck is. They do it at a city park, so a little different situation, but we set our chairs up there and we have dinner and we watch people and talk to people, and we don't do it in the park strip, but it's just a place to, like she said, community, socialize.
Plus, I've noticed with people with kids, sometimes when they go to the window, there's like a little tiny ledge that they might put their purse on and all this stuff if they have a baby or whatever, and then they got all this food all of a sudden when it comes out. Even if a chair is just used just to put stuff on there just temporarily, it's just kind of nicer, other than, they try to carry all this stuff with their kids and everything else. So that's why I thought maybe not a table, but at least a chair, 2 or 3, should be allowed.
Yeah.
And for what you said as well, for the community spirit. Okay, and then right below that is paragraph 2B. Oh, okay, 2B says permit is not required on private property, but then slightly below that, 3DI says permit is required even when located entirely within private property.
Well, and right here, and this is brought up at council, and how I look at this, maybe I'm looking at it wrong. So number 2, food trucks that are permitted in all zones where food establishments of any type are allowed. And the A and B then are standard. So that, to me, number 2 would apply to like a commercial zone, for instance, because you can't open up a restaurant in R110. And then 3, event permits are required. What was the letter again? You said
3DI.
3DI. Yeah, so within a residential zone, you have the I, and I to follow. I don't know, if I'm looking at that wrong, I can certainly be corrected. But,
Yeah, because the paragraph itself is about food trucks are allowed to operate.
Yeah, but then they have a permit.
Yeah, so paragraph 2 says you could have it anywhere, even on private property, and then paragraph 3 says, or the other way around, rather. Private 2 says you do not need a permit, and then private 3, and then paragraph 3 says you do. Did I get it backwards? Yeah, so paragraph 2B says permit not required on private property, but then 3DI says permit is required even when located entirely within private property.
I think the difference is the zoning. I think 2 is focused on zones where food establishments are allowed, and 3 is only for residential zones. Is that right? I mean, 3D at least. Within any residential zone, subject to the following additional conditions. So in residential zones, those would be applicable.
So to be in commercial zone, 2B applies. In residential zone, 3DI applies.
So where in 2B does it say that this only applies to commercial?
2.
In 2, it says food trucks are permitted in all zones where food establishments of any type are allowed.
Okay.
So it says zones where food establishments are allowed. So it's admittedly, it's not clear. It doesn't say commercial or industrial. It doesn't use the zoning terms.
Okay.
So Dave would be able to tell us
Yeah,
better
yeah,
what
I
all
can
those
tell.
zones are.
Right. Okay.
yeah, so I mean, I look at it basically 2 is for commercial zones, 3 is for, private HOAs, whatever, non-commercial areas. Or city parks, city-sponsored special events, things like that.
Yeah, that sounds clear now to me as well. Okay, and then just a couple more. Oh, on 13, I'm sorry, 19.12.06, general subdivision improvement requirements. What is it? The equivalent residential units decreased from 50 to 30, and I was wondering, what was the reason for that?
That's actually corresponds to fire code, and does that also come out of state code, Fred? Yeah.
It's the fire code. Yeah, so ours was more permissive than the fire code, and we needed to change ours to be as restrictive as the fire code.
Okay. Okay, and then 12, where is it? 12, where did the Insurance amounts come from. Okay, so, maybe this is where it changed. Because my notes are from the old packet, and then I'm looking at the new packet. There's some insurance amounts. Where was that? That we require insurance amounts on.
You're looking at for the scooters?
I think that's, yeah, I think that it was 192902, but I don't know where that is, and the page has changed here.
29 changed to 28,
Oh, okay,
so,
maybe that's why. Yeah, and there's an amount of insurances, insurance that we require, oh, there it is. So it's 1928.02.4, I guess, insurance. And then we require $100 or $1 million and $5 million on, so where did we get those insurance amounts? Like, is that
And
the appropriate amount?
And I'll be brutally honest with you now, in all my years, obviously scooter things are something new, so I don't have any experience with, regulating these. I pilfered this from Salt Lake County, or Salt Lake City, most of it, so.
Okay.
That's their code. At some point, they looked it up, they thought that was what was needed. We've just kind of adopted that for our proposal.
Okay, so a city in in Utah.
Yeah,
has
Salt
the
Lake.
Same sort of thing as well, so, okay.
Yeah.
Then I guess, why not?
We don't reinvent the wheel if we don't have to.
No, I mean, I have no idea either, but if Salt Lake City does it, then, okay. And then, just basically, I guess the whole idea of, no, I actually have some more. So I was wondering, why is there a need for terms of insurance and indemnification in the city code? Can't it be in the business license and because this is a contract-based, we're requiring a contract-based system, can it be in the contract? If not, do we have similar language for like car rentals? If there's a car rental agency, do we have similar language where we, require them to have indemnification, insurance, this amount of insurance and all that in the city code? What about rental businesses like for for all-terrain vehicles? Do we have insurance terminology in the city code for companies that might want to rent ATVs? Why do we have that specifically for scooters?
Good question. Again, it's because if it works in Salt Lake, can it work here? There could be some legal, clarification Fred can give, but we figured if it's good for Salt Lake City, it should be able to work here.
Because I was wondering if it's a contract-based system, can it just be in the contract? That way we could change it very easily. Whereas if these amounts are in the city code, then we have to actually do this every time we want, make a change. And then we'd also have to do the same thing for ATVs, for car rentals, for, everybody else. Why have that in the city code? Why not have that in the contract, since these are contract-based, I think we call it contract-based systems.
so for automobiles and automobile insurance and including, other vehicle rentals that are rented out, those are state insurance requirements. And there isn't a state insurance requirement applicable to dockless and mobile scooters on roads. And I think it's because of the extensive use of the road system here, and the side of the road and stuff. And I think that's why it's a little bit different, and that they've put it in the Salt Lake City code, and why it's. You're right. I mean, we could deal with this with contracts, and we will also deal with this with contracts. But I think that this has provided a little bit more protection and assurance. That if you want to come into our city, or this is Salt Lake City, speaking for Salt Lake City, if you want to come into our city and rent out these scooters to pedestrians who would be pedestrians but now are going to be zipping around on scooters, then we're going to have you indemnify us, and you're going to also have insurance to
Would
protect
that also be
them.
the case for bicycle rentals as well? What about wave runners? If we eventually build a beach and there's people who want to rent out water vehicles, then will we need to put that into the code as well, into the city code?
Though they're not using the city facilities, they're using the lake. Or
Well,
they're
if they use
using,
if they run into like a city do we have a city marina or something, you know?
We
if they
do.
run into a
We
dock
have
or-
marinas.
Yeah, I mean, because that's usually where the accidents are gonna happen, is when they try to slow down and they can't, and they just ram right into into the marina or something, into a dock or something.
And we require, I mean, the state, again, requires people to have insurance if they're operating businesses like,
And that
so,
goes into the city, that will be in the city code?
won't be in the city code. It's in state law.
Oh, okay, so scooters just aren't in state law then?
No, they're not.
That's why, okay,
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay. It's more just education for me, I guess, and then, oh, there's a typo, so I'll talk about it later. How about any areas that impede? Oh, okay, for 19.0, no, I'm sorry, 19.29.04, I don't know if that's still the, is it 28?
Yeah, we changed that to 28.
Okay, section 1 point, no, it's paragraph 2. Okay, yeah, for impeding paths, so things that impede the path. So what about any areas that impede trash pickup in residential and commercial areas? How about also snow removal? If, should we add something like about trash pickup as well, so they can't impede trash pickup?
Yeah, it certainly seems like we could throw that in there.
Yeah, because I know just with regular scooters and bikes, my son's friends will just park their bikes right next to the trash can the day before, trash pickup. And so all those bikes are right there, and we think that, we may as well just say you can't impede trash pickup.
Because, I mean, to be completely honest, people are going to park these wherever. I do see it as an enforcement kind of nightmare, but they're going to come here, so we might as well get something in place so we can certainly add that.
Yeah,
At least we have it on, at least we have it on the record in the books that, hey, you can't do it there.
Yeah.
We can even include it under an umbrella statement, a general statement of, cannot impede
City services or something?
services or, any function of the city or utilities or,
Yeah, we'll throw something together and have Fred review it.
Okay. Yeah, I put commercial and I don't know about residential, but for commercial, especially like where you have the trash enclosures. And I've actually seen bikes and stuff being put, because it's just there and they just put it against there, but it could impede trash pickup, And then I was wondering, you talked about this earlier, but why was two-family removed?
State code was changed at the 2021 legislative session that says we can now not require architectural standards for single-family or two-family unless it comes in on a development agreement.
But then 3, 4, 5.
Yes,
can't.
yep, we can.
Wasn't it also in historic districts, which we don't have?
There's some exceptions, but those exceptions don't apply to Saratoga Springs. We don't have historical district here, historic structures.
There was something with mountains too, specifically for Park City, I think.
That could have been, yeah.
So, and what was the rationale? Was that for size? Like, why 1 and 2 is not, and then 3 and 4?
it was in the name of affordability to allow lesser expensive materials and.
Yeah, personally, I think, builders that are influenced up in the legislature said cities are making us do this and it's ridiculous, change it, is my thought.
It's a little controversy, but in the wildland, interface, in the fire hazard area, if you will, on the mountains, that can be restricted for fire safety.
And then one last question. So, going back to the insurance, so Uber drivers and Lyft drivers, we don't need to put those kinds of restrictions because they're driving on the streets, and that is regulated by state. Is that right?
That's my understanding, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely,
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry, that took a long time. That's it.
Troy said you just had one item.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. I'll go down, Commissioner Sportsky Burns. Sorry.
So close.
I know.
So close. I got nothing.
Commissioner Anderson, do you have anything you would like to add?
Stick off.
Commissioner McConkey, we're ready for your.
Take a drink.
Take a,
I have a few questions. Some of them got answered by the state, apparently. Love the state,
They're there to protect us.
of course.
Just remember that.
they're just trying to remind us that we are a political subdivision of the state
Yep.
and that they have the authority to
Yeah,
give us
that's right.
whatever authority they.
Which they do.
There you
As
go.
I believe I've heard a certain senator that lives not too far from here explain that to me once, in my face, no less.
Well, as a side note, I get sidetracked with me. That's, I think, the whole thing with the, I don't know where you're at of the mask debate. I'm not going, but when they rescinded, what was it, Salt Lake County and Summit County, they said, that they came through with the mask mandates and this legislature jumped in and said, no, you can't do that. Anyway, sidetrack there.
Yeah. I haven't seen the latest and greatest. I didn't know that there was one. I'm just going off of what was on yesterday. Had a question, 1904.12, mixed waterfront standards. Does the proposed Section 5 replace the current Section 5 open space and landscaping requirement?
04?
Oh, 1904, yeah, 1904-12, number 5. Did that get changed in the latest? Yeah, that one.
I don't think it was intended to replace what was there. It was an addition.
Okay, so it's just
it
simply stating that
off-numbered?
there's some additional,
Yeah, is it mixed, is it misnumbered?
possibly, I'm just going off of what I printed out, who knows how long ago.
I'm gonna look up the code
In the
here.
city
and see.
code, 1904-12-5 was labeled open space and landscaping requirement.
Oh,
Actually, I think I had it online.
0412. Yeah, 0412 is mixed waterfront zone. Oh, come on. So 1, purpose intent, 2 is density. Three is lot setback development standards. 4, open space and landscaping. So we don't have a 5, so 5 is new.
Interesting. Where did I get that from then? Yeah, what I printed off, I guess I printed off probably a year ago. Did we, maybe we renumbered this? I've got 1904.12, number 5 is open space and landscaping requirement. Maybe I need to print out an updated city code. This was printed off the city website last year, probably about a year ago. Anyway, well, if that's a non-issue, then there we go. I don't know what that note is. Think, in, where is it at? 1905, Point 10, the new number 10, bond required. I think I've got a note, is the word "on" in the original print a typo? All temporary uses
On, oh, yep, on shall post a $500. Yeah, Nikki can clean that up right now. Right here. That on should not be there. 190510, is it 190510?
Yeah,
Yeah, 190510, number 5. Just a typo on number 10, bond required. Yeah, delete on.
and then going to food trucks again. I'm looking at 1905-11-1A8. Food trucks shall not discharge or dispose of any substance, material, food, or waste into the storm drain system. Wondering if we can maybe make that a little bit more generally specific or more specific?
Really specific.
Basically saying the only place that you can dispose of it is in an approved sewer receptacle or something intended for the use. What I had on here also, and part of this comes from back in my inspection days, I'm driving down the road and it happened multiple times, and I see these food trucks turn into corners and all this wastewater comes pouring out the pipe on the side. And I think, that's how they get rid of that stuff, huh, for free? And ends up, of course, in the storm drain system, or if there's no storm drain, then on the side of the road or whatever. So, I thought perhaps adding something like onto the street or onto the ground could be,
Be a little more specific other than just saying storm drain.
yeah,
Say, well, I'm gonna go dump in the middle of the road. Hey, that's not in the storm drain.
right,
What
exactly.
you're getting at.
Yeah.
So,
Or something that something like shall not discharge or dispose of any substance, material, I have a typo here, food or waste, except into a sanitary sewer inlet approved by whatever sewer company we're
Or how
using.
about we could add
For such
something
use.
like, and must be disposed of in an approved location?
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, it somehow needs to make its way into the sewer system. Of course, we don't want to dump grease and all that jazz in
No, we
there,
don't.
so.
Yeah, and some of it will go in the solid waste.
Correct,
Yeah,
yeah, solid
so-
waste, yeah.
So I kind of think what Dave was saying, the proper,
It's an approved.
yeah, approved.
Can some of that be communicated in their application? They have to like specify where they're going to, like you could put that into the permit. To be certified or to receive a permit, you've got to specify where you're going to dump.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's not a bad idea.
Commissioner Spronsky Burns. Am I getting?
So close. Just keep trying. I just actually pushed my button so I could hear you say my name again. No.
I probably deserve that.
Okay, so on 1908-03-6, the home occupation parking. So that change is just, I think I remember you talking about this before, it was just mostly so people can park behind their fence on their side yard, right?
Right. Actually, we need to add, we need to make it a little changes. We need to make that a 6-foot solid fence. Somebody could put a 2-foot fence there and meet that language of the code. So that would be an addition to that.
Is there any further like regulations on that in city code somewhere? I mean,
Or what specific, parking?
just on the occupation vehicles and what can be parked and what has to be
The
registered.
code limits, say you're a contractor and you do construction, we do have a limit on a trailer length parked in a street, for instance, on a weight. I couldn't tell you the weight off the top of my head, but we do already have regulations governing the size of vehicles that you can park in a street.
Okay. Is there any liability issues for if it is like an employee parking and a company truck, but not the actual owner? They aren't the actual owner of the vehicle.
Give me an example. Say you have a home occupation.
Say you're like a plumber and you drive your work plumbing truck and it leaks a bunch of plumbing stuff that shouldn't be leaked. Who's responsible at that point?
Probably whoever owns the vehicle, if they're caught, would be my guess. I don't know if that's something that we could really regulate through this part of the code.
Is there regulation in a different section?
For any kind of illegal dumping, yeah, we have illegal dumping.
Yeah,
We have a section on that already, which we do get, our code enforcement, code compliance inspector does actually enforce several times during the year. Usually dumping of just junk on property, a vacant lot or something, or up in the hillsides, contractors dump stuff. Usually how we enforce that code, what code we enforce is that one.
okay.
But the thought behind this was, because we currently have a home occupation request right now for a contractor. He just has I think a small tool trailer, basically. Technically by the code, he can't do that, but if I was his neighbor, I could park a 35-foot fifth wheeler right on my side of the property, and is that really fair at that point? And so we thought, well, let's see if we can come up with something to allow at least somewhat of parking of a vehicle for a home occupation. The code now already exempts, say you have a truck and you have your business name on the truck, my neighbor does. That doesn't, it's a home occupation vehicle, but as a standard passenger vehicle, you can do that without any going against the code.
Shall we continue?
Yes, you can continue.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just address your question, because you were asking about employer liability versus the employee? That does come up. Brad, our code enforcement officer, he'll see an illegally parked vehicle with a logo, company logo. So does he write the citation to the company, or does he write it to the driver? And the answer is to the driver. And then they can work it out, figure out, is the company responsible or is it the driver? Because sometimes they're acting outside of the scope of their employment, in which case they would be individually liable. But if they're acting within the scope of their employment, say they're told to park there or told to do something, then the company is responsible. So anyway, I don't know if that's the question that you were asking, but I wanted to address it.
Thank you.
Good to know. Looking at, on that same page, looking down at number D, no professional or personal services shall be provided by the food truck. Is professional and personal services defined?
Which section are you looking at again? Is in the food truck?
1905-11-1D. The reason why I ask is because you have professional chefs.
Massage trucks.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
that
you have
is-
counseling, so forth. My question is either on the state level or city level or just in generally accepted terms of those professional or personal services are clearly understood.
Well, if you want to get your hair done there, probably not.
They're not professionals, or they are?
That'd be a personal service, I think.
Well, because they do have like those mobile barber shops now too. So, yeah.
I've seen them at conferences.
But it wouldn't be a food truck, 'cause they can't sell food and do hair at the same time,
You don't know
maybe?
Why? Or
Or taxes,
are we telling them they can't?
What if they sell you a candy bar while you get your hair cut?
laundry, taxes, why not?
Okay.
Delivery pizza.
We'll ponder that one a bit. Moving on to the next page, number 2A. A food truck may operate without a permit. Is it intended to say may operate and not may not operate? Just wondering if the word not is missing in there.
Food trucks are permitted in all zones where food establishments of any type are allowed. A food truck may operate without a permit within a non-residential or agricultural zone. So basically, say someone wants to put a food truck in Walmart, do they need a permit? But if they want to do a food truck at a city-sponsored special event, they do need a permit. Because right now,
So in an agricultural zone, they can go on a farm and they don't need a permit.
yeah, non-residential agriculture
Okay.
and not permitted on B, under 2, they do not need a permit for a private property. Again, this falls under would be commercial zoning. You know, where
Right.
food establishments are allowed.
So they can go to the hospital
Yeah.
parking lot and they don't need a permit. Okay. That makes more sense. Moving on to 1906.8.
I was wondering who's going to bring up turf. All right.
The permit?
You're the only one to bring up turf.
Oh, turf, yeah.
Well, turf.
Well, this is really interesting to me, because I'll be honest, I don't want to say cautiously for, but I am for conserving, of course, water and allowing people to be creative and do it in an attractive manner and, you know, save the water, save the cost of irrigation and so forth. Turf can be interesting because I'm glad to see that there's some standards in there because rather than going down to the hardware store and buying the indoor turf and throwing it out on the lawn the last
Grandparents
6
threw
months.
down on the concrete.
Yeah, exactly.
I contacted a
So-
turf company, I believe it was up in Draper, and asked him, the gentleman I talked to, I don't remember the name of it, but I said, hey, we're looking to put a code into place, you know, he's more knowledgeable obviously than I am. What are some standards you would look at? And most of the ones I actually come up with were spot on. He did talk about the pile weight. I think I had initially 45 ounces per square yard. He said our standard is 50. I mean, you and I probably couldn't tell the difference between 45 and 50, but coming from someone that's in the industry, I thought, okay, I'll put 50 since that's a product he's familiar with. But
Yeah,
that
because
is-
you're looking at wind resistance, you're looking at longevity, avoiding dilapidation, just maintaining some, you know, general attraction,
Yeah,
curb appeal, and functionality. We get some decent winds here, and, you know, if it's not heavy enough and staked down well enough, then it's not going to handle that. My first question is in letter F, installation of artificial turf shall require a building permit. And I'm wondering, is the term building permit appropriate here? Because where it has nothing to do with the building. If there's another type of permit, that would be more appropriate. Or simply maybe a turf permit.
yeah, and we had talked about this with the building department. They're okay doing this as a building permit because there are gonna be standards. You know, you're gonna have to submit the specific, like a building permit, you're building a house. You're gonna have to submit this documentation you see here, and we'll just process that as a building permit.
Okay. That works for me. In number F6, landscaping shall maintain a 5-foot diameter around trees from,
Free from rock debris.
yeah.
Or,
And
that came from, maybe it's not worded correctly, but it came from the city council. When
Okay.
we brought this to them as well. They wanted, one of their points was, okay, 3's the standard right now in the code, but with artificial turf, there could be some other issues, let's go 5. And so that's why 5's in there.
That's fine. I'm wondering why we included free from rock.
Our standard code now, right, says that when we look at landscape plans now, they need to indicate on the landscape plan, on their typical tree planting diagram, that there's a 3-foot diameter free from rock and debris. It's in our code right now.
Okay.
So we just did, only applicable to 5 feet now when you have artificial turf.
So thinking of kind of the xeriscape mentality is, what's the alternative? I mean, rock is fairly common. We want more of
You could
just
put, you know, wood
mulch.
chips, mulch, I mean,
Okay.
rocks. rocks could damage the tree and then end up killing the tree. You know, they could get pushed up against, or when they're putting the rock down, who knows, but there's a thought
They can
of,
get kicked up by
It's when the
the,
tree grows, if the rocks don't move, and the tree grows around it, and it can kill the
but
tree.
you can certainly put mulch.
so
obviously.
is rock and gravel different? I guess that was my question, because when I think rock,
Gravel is just small size
I
rocks.
think gravel,
Small size rocks,
so,
very small rocks.
okay. You're right.
Got it?
Yes, I did.
I watched that the other day, by the way.
Apparently I did not.
Could I ask a question that goes along with something that you asked earlier about the artificial turf? So we have a neighbor, a couple of houses across. They put artificial turf in the front yard right around a fountain. And it's only about this much space, and they did this like 2 years ago.
Oh, did they?
And it probably violates HOA, but still, it also violated city at that time. This will change that, but it's so small, does he need a building permit for that? Is there like a minimum size that we require, that requires a building permit?
We don't have it in there now. Right now, I want to say there's at least 3 places we know about in the city of people that have put in turf. One's done it just in the park strip, one's done it in his entire front yard. Another one is the one you probably know about from several years ago that looks like it's just that green carpet that they just threw down out on a corner lot down in the south end of town. But, yeah, I mean, at what point do you need a permit for that? I mean, yeah, it's probably a valid question. We haven't thought that far through it yet, you know, that particular situation. Of course, it still should meet standards, so we still should verify it somehow. Again, to prevent someone from doing, you know, going to Home Depot and buying the one that you'd glue down on your concrete steps, basically. So we probably still need to require it regardless.
Okay, looks like our community development director, Ken Young, wants to.
Yeah, I was just going to say, goes along with what Dave just said, but regardless of the size of turf that you put down there, there still needs to be a review done by city staff to make sure it meets the requirements. So if it's, 300 square feet or 50 square feet, the review is the same, and so therefore the need for a permit.
Question on number 7, just below that one, rubber or inorganic infill is prohibited while organic
fighting.
infill is permitted. I don't know what infill means.
Infill, so when you put turf down, just like grass, if you stand on real grass for a long time, what happens? What happens to the grass?
Just mats.
It gets matted down. So in the artificial turf industry, when you put the turf down, you go back in and you put in infill. Similar to like if you're watching a football game and a football player drags his foot, you see how it's black. That's rubber infill there. It helps keep the fibers
Standing up.
standing.
Oh,
So a lot of times they use a silica, which is a natural material, obviously. There's crushed, maybe it's walnut shells maybe that can be used. But the thought is use an organic something, because at some point this stuff could eventually work its way in the storm drain system, into the water supply, things like that. There's concern of, does rubber or inorganic, is there a health issue with that? And so again, the one that I talked to says, yeah, we use all of our turf we put in, all it uses is a silica compound.
Okay. I agree with that then. Number 9,
So that's like, can we go back to that really quick?
yeah.
So something like that, like, because rubber is certainly cheaper, isn't it? That's my understanding.
Is cheaper?
That inorganic is cheaper. than
Probably.
the organic. So if you've got like a little 100 square foot, like some little,
Really small.
and you put infill in it. Anyway, I guess,
Where we live next to a lake, I think the organic might be a good,
yeah,
But on the same token, if you got 100 square feet, a bag of silica is not going to cost you much either,
yeah, that's right.
in the long term, yeah.
yeah. Stormwater runoff shall be maintained on site.
I had
Maintained or retained?
maintained. Kind of, I get where you're coming from with that, because we have retention basins, we have detention basins. Maintains mean you've got to keep it on your property. It's a term that's used other parts of the code as well.
Okay.
I did have a different language here when you did take us to the council. They wanted something a little more general on that, and so that's what we've since changed it to.
Okay. It just, I'm not quite sure exactly what it's trying to say, to be honest.
Well,
Basically, don't pipe it to the street?
Well,
Is that what-
if you're on the high side of a hill and you want to put turf in your backyard, where's stormwater going to go? You've got to have a plan to detain. Now, if you had grass and whatnot, certainly grass, real turf, typically people put in, topsoil on that too. That's going to retain much more water, I would suspect,
Yeah,
than artificial turf.
okay.
I mean, there's no absorption ability for artificial turf. It's going to go underneath and if we have clay soils in the area, you're certainly going to get, runoff underneath. So they've got to have a plan to say, what are you going to do about stormwater?
So we're just trying to maintain the design, the drainage patterns, the original
But,
drainage
in
pattern
that
or
term,
something.
someone maintains records, they keep records, so.
Yeah, okay. Number 6, below that, 19083.
And we're going to
Already
add,
talk about this one?
yeah, we're going to add
The
6 feet
6-foot
there.
corner side streets, okay. My question was, can this be clarified, but I think this got clarified pretty well. And I think that might be as far as I got in my review, actually, so that's all I have. Thanks for your patience.
Okay, any other comments from the commission on for this item for our work session?
Nope. We'll make a few of these changes and, we'll bring it back in 2 weeks and we'll get your recommendation. And certainly in 2 weeks, you read it again, you may come up with something else, but we'll take your recommendation, whatever you have there, and forward that on to the city council.
Okay. Ken, did you have a typo for the minutes? Or was it?
No, it wasn't for the minutes. It was actually for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was just, he found a typo in one of the items and turned it in? Okay.
Yep.
All right, we'll move on to the approval of minutes. Do we have any changes we need to submit? I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes for our last meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the planning commission meeting minutes for Thursday, January 27th, 2022.
We have a motion from Commissioner McConkey. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Kilgore. Do we have a question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, the minutes are approved. Commission comments.
You want to say anything about that amazing steering committee meeting last night?
Ken, do you want to mention anything?
I don't have anything particular to say, other than I think it's going very well. I thought the comments and questions that were made in the steering committee meeting last night were very helpful and moving us forward in a good direction. So I don't know if you want to add to that.
I'm grateful for the diversity that we seem to have. I'd love to see a little more diversity, but some of the comments just came from people that think differently than I think and had some great points.
What we're talking about is the steering committee for the new general plan that's coming up. And yes, we do have a good diverse group, and they're willing to speak, which is good for our consultants that are moving that process along. Director's report.
Other than what we just briefed on last night, we're still actively very busy with all of our projects and got some good things coming down the pipeline.
And it looks like we're having a meeting next time because I got a notice today.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a need to go into a closed session tonight?
We do not.
Okay, then I will adjourn this meeting until the next meeting.
Adjourn this meeting to our next